This is a special presentation of Farm Journal Television.
You're watching Corn College TV. I'm Clinton Griffiths. Class is in session.
Today on Corn College TV, we're wading through weeds after a late start to planting. We'll tell you how to deal with this overgrowth problem in the systems approach, plus analyzing root growth mid-season. And Ken Ferrie takes a closer look at our seed situation by evaluating the microenvironment. That's today on Corn College TV.
Well, hello, and thanks for watching Corn College TV. You know, we're always anxious to hit the field at planting time, but some years, Mother Nature puts up one roadblock after another. Well, in this morning's systems approach, Missy Bauer gives us some tips on surviving a late planting season when winter annual weeds knot our crops. Get a head start. Missy, we spent last fall working this ground, getting it ready for our planting season, and now we've spent the spring, but when we come out here, we're covered up in winter annuals.
Yeah, sometimes we get into bad situations due to Mother Nature. So in this situation, we started off with a conventional tillage last fall. It was turbo chiseled, thinking that you'd have a good clean seed bed, come in level in the spring. But we get these years with these delayed planting dates like we have here in the spring of 2011, where we get late and can't get in with the tillage because it's too wet. Then we end up with this flush of these winter annual weeds that kind of keep on going and start to cause a lot of problems now when we come in here.
Yeah, that probably causes a problem with our tools that are trying to do the leveling and re-till when our spring comes along.
So to come in here with our leveling tool, hit it with one pass, and work things up, if we didn't have all these winter annuals here, would be a pretty easy thing. But when we come in with these tools, we really fight, especially with weeds like this chickweeds, because it's almost like a carpet or a mat. So it doesn't allow these tools to work like they should. So it gives a more difficult time to really try to get that seed bed that we want.
Okay, and I would imagine it also clogs up some of those tools, and then it probably holds some moisture, especially in a wet spring.
Yeah, when you get weeds like this chickweed, it's going to hold moisture. It also utilizes nitrogen, so it can hurt you from that point as well. So there can definitely be some real issues with it. The other thing that it can also cause problems if we do get our leveling tool through, so we do get it leveled up, ready to plant, we can have issues in with the planter because we still got a lot of these weeds laying on the surface, as you can see, that you got to try to get the planter through.
Right, right. What about insects? I mean, it obviously provides some sort of habitat.
Anytime we get this green vegetation, there's a lot of things like black cutworm, for example, is a moth. It's going to fly in, and it's going to fly in, and it's going to want to lay its eggs in some sort of green vegetation. So chickweed's a real big host for that. So even though this field was tilled, you would think it should be fine. Because of the delayed season, the weeds ended up growing anyways. Now those cutworm moths lay their eggs here, and we could have a potential cutworm problem.
Okay.
Something we usually only maybe pay more attention to in no-till.
All right, so bottom line, winter annuals are going to be a problem if you get a late spring.
Yeah, and so some things to think about is there anything you can do as far as burn down type programs in the fall? You know, the sooner we can get in with our leveling tools, the better. And maybe we're going to have to make some adjustments. Seed bed is still the most important thing we're after here. So if that tool that you were going to run in here isn't going to do a good job because of the weed mat that we have here, then maybe we need to run a more aggressive tool. So sometimes a more aggressive tool will get in there and actually float a little bit better maybe than what our maybe traditional tool is going to be. So we've got to have some flexibility in there saying I've still got to get the seed bed sacred even though it's not the ideal conditions to make a seed bed.
Yeah, and that's the key. Keep the seed bed sacred. All right, thanks for being here, and we'll be back with more in a moment.
Up next, Missy Bauer returns with a look at mid-season root growth. And later, Ken Ferrie takes us seed side for an up-close look at the microenvironment of our seeds at planting. It's all about higher yields when Corn College TV returns.
Corn College TV is brought to you in part by Micro Essentials, the next generation of fertilizer for the next generation of farming.
Over the generations, fertilizer, the unsung hero of the farm, has been in the background, quietly nourishing crops with very little fanfare. Until now. Meet the next generation of fertilizer. Micro Essentials.
Today's corn producers know success in their operation doesn't start with fall harvest. Harvest starts here. Successful corn production starts with the right seedbed preparation, precise fertilizer application, and the best planting equipment available. At Great Plains, we've engineered the systems today's successful corn producers need to maximize yields. To learn about Great Plains yield maximizing systems, visit harveststartshere.com. Great Plains, harvest starts here.
For 2012, new Genuity VT Double Pro Rib Complete Blended Seed Corn combines dual modes of above-ground insect protection and the convenience of no longer having to plant a separate, structured refuge in the corn growing area.
You've got the simplicity and convenience that a single bag solution offers. I can plant fence row to fence row. I don't have to worry about ordering 2 different types of seed. I don't have to worry about calculating that required refuge for each field. I'm automatically compliant.
Kirkpatrick says that Genuity VT Double Pro Rib Complete with maximum corn earworm protection follows Monsanto's 2011 introduction of Genuity Smart Stacks Rib Complete Corn, which offers both above and below ground insect control.
Now those farmers who don't have corn rootworm pressure have an answer with Genuity VT Double Pro Rib Complete. So it really adds to the toolkit available to farmers to decide what level of protection do you want for those acres. So we're seeing farmers quickly adopt to Rib Complete technology.
Missy, there's no better time to head to the field than in the middle of a hot, hot summer day. But it's a good time to come out and see what's going on underground and do some diagnostics. Today we're going to talk about root balls.
Correct. What we want to be able to get a good handle on is what's going on with our root growth, and we're not going to know that unless we do some digging. And this time of the year, after things have kind of pollinated, is a great time to be out here and really analyze what's happening with the roots. And the reason we want to do that is we want to know, do we have issues with root development based on soil density issues below the surface?
Okay.
So we got something that's restricting root growth, like a layer that's been put in from a tillage tool,
Okay.
where we've made kind of a pan in there or a horizontal layer that could be affecting that.
All right, is there any magic to the digging?
Well, a little bit. You
Yeah.
know, that sounds kind of weird, but there is a little bit. When we go out to dig, and we want to make sure, the key here is we're going to be digging far enough away from the base of the plant.
Okay.
So if we look down in here at the base, we want to be far enough out that we're outside of where the gauge wheels would have ran for this planter.
Okay.
So we don't want to have any issues from that. We want to make sure that we're getting outside of that. So typically, if we get out in this zone, make sure we're outside of where those gauge wheels ran, we'll be all right. Then we go ahead and we just start digging, and we dig all the way around.
All the way around.
Okay?
And you have some examples here that we've pulled.
Yeah, we do. And when we're doing this digging, and you can see it by these examples, there's times that we do want to dig pretty deep.
Sure.
So you got to think about, where's the layer at that you're potentially concerned about. So in this particular field, we were concerned that we might have something a little bit deep. So we went ahead and dug this root ball, make sure we were getting down to that 8-9 inches deep.
Okay, and a big one.
And a big one just for one here, so we could get an idea. What's interesting when we're digging, that when you have a density layer, it'll naturally want to break off at that. So when you're digging and you're going to pop this thing up, it'll break a lot of times almost as flat as the top of a table.
Huh, interesting, okay.
Of where that change in density is, and you can actually see that example here. We dug this one, and if we measure where this layer is at here, we're looking at about 8 inches or so down. Okay, in this particular case, this is from where we had ran a moldboard plow.
Right.
Okay, so we had ran a moldboard plow out here about 8 inches deep. Some things that we can see right away when we look at the bottom of this plow pan is you can see some residue that's buried here.
Right.
As that plow come through, we buried all this residue.
Right.
This is in a situation where we don't have a lot of oxygen, so it's not going to break down.
Sure.
But what I'm really concerned about when I'm looking at these layers is what's happening as far as root growth.
We just don't see a bunch.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of roots coming through the center of this thing. If we go ahead and look here at a little bit smaller portion that we've dug out, again, we're trying to look down the center of here and saying, what kind of root growth am I having coming down through here? And what we have in this situation where we have this plow pan in here is that a lot of the roots are coming down to this plow pan, and then they're turning and going sideways instead of coming down through it.
Sure.
You know, once in a while we'll get where a soil's cracked and we can see that some roots got through.
Right.
But for the large part, we don't have a lot of roots that are coming through this plow soil.
Right, right.
Which when we get to days like today where we need some water, this could be detrimental because we can't get it pulled up here.
Sure, sure.
Now we also can see in this example too that we've got maybe some issues of something a little bit shallower because we've got some roots that are coming out sideways here, maybe about 3 inches down, coming off on the sides here as well. So I went ahead and I cleaned this off a little bit. So we just clean these off with a hatchet, what I like to do is get all these brace roots chopped off there, so all we end up with is a plant here that's just got what we call the crown roots on it. So we take a look at the crown roots in this example, and we can see some of these first sets of crown roots are coming down, and they're coming out here on an angle. In this example, what we're doing is we're catching on a layer from a soil finisher.
Okay.
It's run about 3 inches deep, and you can see that's where a lot of these roots are being turned, is at about that depth.
And it looks like there's another turn further down.
Yep, we are picking up basically this plow soil where you can see that they're coming down there about that 8 inches and they're turning and going sideways. We can see a lot of them are kinking and trying to find a way to get through.
Okay. What should it look like?
Well, what we'd ideally like to have, if we go out in our fields and we're finding these, we want to take notes of what the depth that it's at. So if we're going to try to correct this problem later, we know that. So in this example, we've got one at 8 inches, one at about 3 inches. What we'd ideally like to see out in the field is an example like this. Where this came out of a vertical tillage system, so we don't have a horizontal layer that's been put in here by a tillage tool. So we ran tools in here that wouldn't create a layer, and you can see a dramatic difference in the amount of roots that are coming out through the center if we're looking down to the center of where this crown would be. So this is more ideal. We don't see a lot of them coming out here sideways like we did in these other examples.
Yeah, and a good way for the plant to be able to get some water on these really hot days.
That's right. We got to have roots down there if we're going to try to bring water up from deep in the soil profile.
When we come back, Ken Ferrie takes a look at the microenvironment around planted seeds, searching for clues to all-season performance. And later, our top tips for growing corn after corn.
Corn College TV, brought to you by John Deere and your local John Deere dealers. Nothing runs like a deer.
You, your machines, your operators, and your dealer, all working together to improve your business. Welcome to John Deere Farm Site, a strategy built around 3 key elements: your farm equipment, our technology solutions, your John Deere dealer, equals John Deere Farm Site. The future of farming is in sight.
Nematodes. They wreak havoc on the roots of corn, cotton, and soybeans. Your plants need the best protection they can get. Protection that combines the most revolutionary nematode barrier available with one of the most trusted seed-applied insecticides on the market, Poncho Votivo. It's applied directly to the seed, protecting the roots below and the corn, cotton, and soybeans above. Plant it, and the protection grows.
Flores Trading is an industry leader in using technical analysis for trading. Now more than ever, price swings often have no relationship to supply and demand. Flores Trading can help you incorporate technical analysis for your marketing and trading decisions. At Flores Trading, you'll receive free live quotes 24 hours a day, and you can trade right on your own computer or cell phone. You can open an account online in 5 minutes with no paperwork. Technically speaking, Flores Trading should be your broker. To get started, call the number below.
Farmers Feeding the World is about agriculture coming together to increase both hunger solutions and food production. It's right there, between can and do. Learn more, give generously, dream huge.
You know, we're all busy, and often a hectic schedule leads to a lot of rushing around at planting time, or falling into the old plan it and forget it trap. Well, in this morning's Farmer's Toolbox, Ken Ferrie shows us how to use a little bit of time and these 2 eyes to take a closer look at where those seeds call home. So normally what people do is just kind of dig down the middle of the furrow here, is that right?
Right. What you want to do is capture what I call the microenvironment around that seed, but you got to know how it actually is. And probably one of the common things you see is a farmer use a pliers and come out here and he'll dig for seed depth. So he'll dig down until he finds his seed. And then he'll either stick his finger in there and measure it, or he'll measure on the pliers and he'll know his seed depth. And that's not a bad way to check seed depth. But the problem is when we're talking about looking for the microenvironment, you destroy all the evidence, because as you're raking through here, you kind of take all that evidence out. Now what we would have them or teach them do is dig down till they find their seed. then depending on their plant population, they should know where the next seed's going to be.
Sure.
So once we find a seed, then we're going to do a cross section of that furrow to find the next seed. So we dig down here and get a cross section of where that next seed's going to be.
Now, what's that cross section going to tell us? I mean, we're looking at the slot, is that right?
Right. So we're looking for how is that seed tucked in. And in this case, my seed is right here. You can see the seed coating, the color right here. The seed is right there. And ideally is we would not see how that seed got put in there. So if you think of it as your hand, you put the seed there and you don't know how it got there. If you put the seed there and there's a slot above it, then there's a pretty good chance that slot's going to open up and you're going to have sidewall smearing.
Sure.
So with no seam above it, tells us that this seed's in good shape. And here's where my closing wheels ran. And if I got enough down pressure on my closing wheels, this wall should stand up.
Okay.
Now making this wall stand up in a wet environment is pretty easy. But in a drier environment, if I can't get this sidewall to stand up, I'm going to increase my down pressure on my tail wheel to make sure the moisture doesn't give out, because the closing wheels close the furrow, but at the same time they have to firm it enough to keep moisture from coming off on a day like today when we're 80 degrees. We're going to be 90 this afternoon, wind blowing. This moisture could disappear too quick on us and then we got a seed in trouble.
Okay.
So this is kind of an ideal seed bed, and I can see that off here to where the depth wheels have run on the planter, I haven't put any serious compaction in. I can rake through that. There's no evidence here of how that seed got put in. It's tucked in there pretty nice, and you know you're in good shape then.
Yeah, Ken, now when do we do this? I mean, we make one pass, do we just get started and then go out and check this? We don't want to wait till we finish and do this, right?
Yeah. This is probably going to be the more consuming part of after all the adjustments are made. Now, there's equipment now in our planters that can tell us if we're maintaining depth and things like that, so we know the down pressure. But this is going to be per field, and typically we should do it in a couple places in the field. Definitely in an environment like this, you want to take your roughest environment to make sure that your roughest environment today is going to be this low ground that's carrying lots of moisture. Other days, though, it may be the higher, more elevated ground that you're worried about being in moisture. We got to put the seed in moisture, and then we got to make sure that moisture stays around that seed.
Right.
This environment's going to be totally different than what we dig over here, where we increase the down pressure that changes the whole microenvironment. We're going to have a different planting atmosphere over here than we do over there, because all we did was change the down pressure, carrying too much.
It's time now for our weekly question from the audience we like to call Ask the Agronomist. This week, viewers want to know about corn on corn. The question is, what are your top tips for a corn-on-corn operation?
The one thing up front to remember is it's quite a change when you move from a crop rotation into corn on corn. You are increasing a lot of stresses out there that you have to pay attention to. Probably one of the big ones is disease. So you have to think, do you have a good disease management strategy in place? Are you picking resistant hybrids, or are you managing the disease through a fungicide or that type of thing? Or are you burying residue and getting rid of the source of the disease? But all those are going to play into fact how much disease pressure that you're going to have in that environment itself. Probably the other big one is nitrogen management. So it's not so much total pounds of nitrogen you put on, but you are going to pay what I call a carbon penalty when we decompose this carbon in the spring. Going to put a pretty good pull on your nitrogen program, and how can you let that take place but at the same time keep the corn happy? So revamping the nitrogen program is almost a must in that system. And then of course we've got quite a bit more residue to carry, and whether you're no-till corn on corn or conventional till, is your corn planter set up to manage that residue, because we've got to have a good stand that we're going to be working with there. So are we talking about coulters or row cleaners or combinations of it? It really depends on the soil itself. Got to have the stand, got to keep that corn happy from start to finish, and we can't let disease take it out. So you know, it's a situation where there's three big pieces of that puzzle that have to be managed.
Head to agweb.com to have your agronomic questions answered by a Farm Journal agronomist. Ask the Agronomist is brought to you by Monsanto DeKalb.
Over the generations, fertilizer, the unsung hero of the farm, has been in the background, quietly nourishing crops with very little fanfare. Until now. Meet the next generation of fertilizer. Micro Essentials.
You, your machines, your operators, and your dealer, all working together to improve your business. Welcome to John Deere Farm Site, a strategy built around 3 key elements: your farm equipment, our technology solutions, your John Deere dealer, equals John Deere Farm Site. The future of farming is in sight.
Hello folks, this is Mark Gold with Top Third Ag Marketing. If you need help marketing your grains or livestock, give us a call. We offer one-on-one relationships that can protect you without the threat of margin calls. We don't speculate, we manage risk. If you're tired of paying acreage and management fees for marketing advice that hasn't actually helped your bottom line, then give us a call.
Call today to get 2 weeks of Mark's private grain marketing email. Top Third Ag Marketing, earning the trust of American farmers every day.
I'm Greg Vincent, the editor of AgWeb, and welcome to our new site. This marks the end of many long months by a lot of us here at Farm Journal Media, and also even some of our loyal readers who were dedicated to helping us remain the homepage of agriculture. This new site is designed to have more vibrant content, easier navigation, and faster load times while still delivering the same quality information that you've come to expect from AgWeb over the past 10 years. So go ahead and take a look around the site and let us know what you think.
AgWeb, the homepage of agriculture.
Welcome back. We continue our conversation with Ken Ferrie about the microenvironment and what heavy down pressure can do to that seed's home. All right, Ken, this is where we ran with heavy down pressure.
Right, we got heavy down pressure here. We've taken away a lot of the dry soil and we're putting ourselves right into the real tacky mud. I'm trying to sneak up on the seed here. I can already see a seam left from the double disc opener as it went through. Definitely you can feel it in here where the depth wheel ran.
Right.
Total different environment here than what we were dealing with over in here as far as that environment itself. And it's a pretty good indicator. There's my seed. I can see the seed slot here above it. So it's a pretty good indicator then that this thing is going to crack open right there on that seed slot.
Right.
And if you were to look at this environment right here, you'd say, well, this is too wet to be planting in. But the reality is, if we set the planter right, we can plant this. We got to make it dance versus carrying all that down pressure, causing this sidewall smearing and moving all my dry soil out of the way, forcing me to plant into this wetter stuff that sits here below it.
And that sidewall smearing is going to give us fits later on in the season, right?
That's right. It's going to give us poor seed to soil contact, so our seeds may not germinate at the same time, and that's going to be the biggest offense. We're going to have uneven emergence. If it continues to dry, this will crack open. So we'll see corn here that'll be 3rd, 4th, 5th collar, and then the trench will start to open back up, and that creates poor crown root development. Once the crown roots do develop, there's so much compaction set in from the corn planter, the root systems have to go straight down when they really should go out in a crown format and move down through this whole profile. So what we would come back here in about 3 to 4 weeks, and when we dig this up, it'll split right down the seam, and the corn roots they'll be showing us that they're having trouble getting through this smeared area that we put in with the corn planter.
Okay.
And the problem is this field really was fit if we just back off the down pressure. Again, to back off the down pressure, we got to have a good seed bit. To back off the down pressure, we got to keep the speed of the planter down. So if we're driving too fast, we're getting too much bounce, we're adding down pressure, we could be putting ourselves in this issue. Most people would look at that and say, well, that's not from planting too fast, but it very well could be if you were planting so fast the units were bouncing and you increase the down pressure to keep the bounce out of the planter to maintain depth.
Right.
Or we could look at this and say that's a function of row cleaner too deep. And say, well, how could a row cleaner too deep be that? Well, if the row cleaner's too deep and moves the dry soil out of the way, forcing you into a seed bed down there that's wetter. If you're going to operate like this, unfortunately the way we have to do it is shear all this soil off down at 4 or 5 inches, dry it all out so we can plant then into it. And we don't have that time and we don't want to fight those clods. So situation where we have to stay on top of it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Ken. And thank you for watching. Remember, if you want to see any of these tips again or share them with friends and family, you can always find them online at farmjournalcorncollege.com. And here's what's coming up next week on the show.
Coming up next week on Corn College TV, Missy Bauer becomes the pest boss as we scout early season corn for cutworms. Plus, identifying crown roots on young corn and understanding how those roots play a role in the ugly corn stage. And the pros and cons of starter fertilizer. That's next week on Corn College TV.
We'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Class dismissed.